every leader has a lot more revenue and profit potential than they ever imagined. And what we figured out was the key to that is unlocking the untapped potential of all of their employees.
Hi everyone, this is Optimal Instinct with Trish, and I am Trish Tag, a business efficiency expert. What makes me different is that I can get you an action plan that will get your clients to stay longer, pay more, and refer often. All this in one day instead of 600 hours. How much is your time? Today we have as our guest, Howard M. Shore. Howard is the founder and CEO of Activate Group, Inc. He is a best-selling author and serial entrepreneur specializing in liberating C-suite teams from the barriers holding them back personally and professionally. After owning and selling several of his own companies, working with numerous top 500 companies, and training with performance-enhancing organizations like Scaling Up and Gazelles, Howard has become a sought-after business mentor, executive coach, and keynote speaker. His clients work in family-owned, multinational public and private companies ranging from $1 million to over $1 billion in annual revenue. As a member of the NSA, that's National Speakers Association, his talks cover employee empowerment, cash flow enhancement, human capital management, entrepreneurial freedom, and business growth. With a 30-year track record of success, he guarantees any organization that his methods and systems can help them become more profitable, stable, and scalable. A little known fact about Howard is that he honed his craft in the family business trenches, as he says, the stereotypical dysfunctional family business. Hostile environment, witness to an owner that claimed to know everything about the business and industry. Incredible amounts of man hours were put into this business, but after 30 years, there was no real business of consequence. Howard was to learn how to lead and build cultures in a way that better engages its employees. Hey, Howard. Good morning. What a way to learn.
Good morning, and I'm so glad you had me here today.
Yes, thank you so much for being a guest on our show. So let's get right to it. What is the problem that you solve?
Well, and I want to inspire every leader who's listening to this call to realize that they're missing at least $1 million on their bottom line. And I've yet to find a company that's been able to prove me wrong. And, a great example is a client that we had in the restoration industry. I remember when the owner came to me from 20 years to get to 7 million. They were a very good company in their industry, but the owner knew he had a lot more potential. I'm proud to say after working with them, we moved them from 7 million to 22 million in revenue, and their net profit was 5 times the industry average. But the really great part of this was we did that in 3 years. Wow. And so this kind of gets to the main point is what I've realized is that every leader has a lot more revenue and profit potential than they ever imagined. And what we figured out was the key to that is unlocking the untapped potential of all of their employees. And that's what we did for that company.
That's fantastic. So what are the common mistakes people make when they're trying to solve that problem?
Well, the first one is, and everything revolves around people, but I had created this calculator that the first thing we have to do is help companies actually see what their potential is. So the problem is when you, and I actually happen to be a CPA, when you actually look at your financial statements, general accepted accounting principles only capture the transactions that occur. So if it's not a transaction where there's an exchange of money, it doesn't show up in your financials. And see, the real money in our company is what doesn't show up in our financials. For example, and excuse this if it's a little extreme for some of the audience, but there's no financial statement line item for I hired a dumbass. And there is no financial statement line item. There's no financial statement line item is I don't really have a differentiated strategy. There's no financial statement line item that shows this is the cost of my bad processes. All it shows is the dollars and cents that flowed through the company and the transactions that happened. And that other stuff we have found could double and triple companies if we capture what I call in my first book, business leaks. And all businesses are leaking. And bigger the business, the bigger the leaks. Now, here's what I found from doing that, though. Your number one potential is people. So let's get back to, I hired the wrong person. Most organizations don't really understand what it costs them when they keep the wrong people. And at a minimum, most companies, 20% of their employees are not performing to standards. They're not living all their core values and meeting reasonably high performance standards. The cost of this is 2.5 times that employee's salary. And so when you start adding that up, most companies, it's 50% or more because they haven't built in the infrastructure to make sure that everybody knows what's expected of them. The second thing that gets into this is hiring. So the national average of hiring rate the first time is 25%. When you look at most companies, they're going to have to acknowledge, but they haven't been calculating how often they're hiring wrong. So you've hired wrong if you've hired somebody and at 90 days, 6 months, 9 months, and a year, they're not performing at your reasonably high standards or they're not living your core values. So when looking at that, most companies are falling in that 25% realm. So you might ask, well, so what? Well, if I have to fill 10 positions in a year, or even some of our clients at 10 positions in a month, it will take you 31 hires before you actually fill those 10 positions right.
Wow.
That's
an interesting statistic.
So we are seeing a lot of money being left on the table because we're allowing mediocrity in our companies. And we are not addressing this hiring mistakes. Now, getting back to the leaks, what we're also finding is, and I experienced this. I mean, I grew up into a company that was large as 20 billion in revenue, and I always got promoted and that kind of stuff. But I can tell you the people that I worked for did not really tap into my potential. Even though I'm a very driven person, they still only got half because they didn't know how to use my brain properly. And then I started looking around, and this was an epidemic. Most of the people that were around me, the employer was getting half. And so I realized there needed to be a better way. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Gallup organization, but I had become fascinated with leadership. I'm like, God, what's going on here? And then Gallup actually showed me that my hypothesis was correct. Only 33% of American workers are what they call engaged, which means they're profoundly connected to the organization and they're going to be creative in how they do things. That means that you have 67% of employees in the US that you have not tapped into their potential. That's a lot of money. That's trillions of dollars of US money being lost because of this. So then I wanted to find a better way. And so what I want to challenge everybody on this call was, we created a framework. We knew we needed systems and framework for strategy, for stewardship, how we drive the organization and the culture, planning, accountability, and human capital management, which is how we grow our most important assets, our people. And when I looked at it, even the big companies were usually good at maybe one or two of those 5 things I just mentioned. But I had never, and I have yet to meet a company that has mastered all 5 systems. So we realized that we needed a complete system, not just on accountability or planning, but all 5. And if you have a system like that, you'll get much better results.
Optimal Instinct with Trish is brought to you by TrishTagley.com and the book Everyone Knows You Suck, Bad Boss Stories, A Succinct Guide, available now in both ebook and print format on Amazon.com. And the C's Value Model that supports your desire for client relationships that are more profitable, more productive, and more likely to refer. To understand more about the C's model, go to clientvaluedemo.com. So based on that mistake, what is a number one tip that you could give a leader or stakeholder?
All right. So the number one tip, what's the one thing that I would want to share with you? I guess what I would say, and we're going to offer at the end, is the first place that I would want to start is with our business acceleration calculator. It's really helpful, it's inspiring, and it opens up awareness when you know the type of money that you're leaving on a table and where all your big opportunities are. So if you're able to calculate all of the cost of your hiring mistakes and your accepting mediocrity, it usually motivates people. We always find at least $1 million in the people area. So it's really motivating to know that, God, as good as you're doing, if we just close this people leak, we can capture so much money. Then you start looking at, because using that tool, there's 21 different ways to improve your cash flow. By going through that, you're surprised by which ones are the big ones, and then you can go after them.
Fantastic. And the link for your calculator will be in the show notes. So everybody, don't worry, you are going to have access to that. Now, for the last question, what should I have asked you that I did not?
Well, I shared a lot of tips, and I shared what I would say is kind of a deep thought, but you haven't asked me any questions into how they might apply the tools or what challenges they may run into in doing the tools. And probably the most important thing is you're not going to meet a business owner that does not recognize they have more potential. So why then do they not go after it? Wow. And I'm going to say there's like several reasons why I found people don't follow through with capturing their leaks. The first one, was obviously the financials. They don't really understand what cause and effect makes their financials be what they are. And so the first thing I would say with most leaders is you don't need to become a CPA and you don't need to get into the bowels of the details of your financials, but every leader on the team needs to understand cause and effect. Every action or inaction will make those numbers better. And so then understanding from the 80-20 rule, 80% of our output comes from 20% of the inputs. Which things do we want our teams to really focus on so we can get maximum advantage? The second one that I found is mastery. So a lot of times we dabble in things, and usually in business, what people want to master is their business, their trade. But you see, the thing is once you become leaders and business owners, you have to master working on the business. So human capital management, strategy, all 5 of the elements I said are different areas you need to master. And there's a lot of work to really understand how to master them. And then as your company grows, mastery takes on a new life. So you have to constantly learn, how do I apply these concepts now that I went from 50 employees to 100 employees to 500 employees? It changes. And if you're not working on mastering those things, you'll never get real results. And then the last one I'm going to steal from Jim Collins is good is the enemy of great, right? And so there's so many business owners that they don't realize they've gotten complacent and they stopped playing to win, and they're actually in a not to lose mentality because their numbers are good enough. But what they don't realize is most of our clients work less after they implement these systems, and they do a ton more, just like I told you about my client in the beginning. That owner and the number 2 person in that company work half as much as they used to, even though their company tripled in size.
Yes, that's always, because like I said, initially, I'm a business efficiency expert as well. And you'll be amazed at how just tweaking something means less work for you, but greater output. So there you go. Okay, well, Howard, I know you're a busy man. Thank you so much for being on the show. Look out for Howard's show, Howard M. Shore, and we will have the calculator available for you to use. And Howard, good luck.
Hey, thank you. And I wish everyone that's listening to this podcast a lot of success.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for joining us on Optimal Instinct with Trish. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, head on over to iTunes, subscribe, and if you really enjoy the content, leave us a well-appreciated review. If you are looking to create an environment that partners your desire for more profitable, more productive, and greater referability in client relationships, combined with sustained team morale, then I suggest you head over to clientvaluedemo.com to learn more about the C's value model. Talk soon.